if you look at street photography from like the 60s, 70s, and even 80s, people weren't as angry or annoyed, or I don't want to say they were more welcoming, but a camera wasn't as invasive as it is now because everyone has a camera.
Yeah, yeah.
And not only everyone has a camera, but now everyone knows that media is going to be consumed by other people. Back then,
there wasn't as much a demand for it.
There wasn't a demand for it. And also back then, not everyone was gonna have their work in a gallery. Not everyone was gonna have their work in a newspaper. Most photographers back then was just people who just love photography as an act, and then maybe, you know, spend some time in a darkroom and would print them out, and they weren't going to be seen or consumed by the general masses. Versus now, the assumption is this photograph that was just taken of me by a stranger will only not be seen by this stranger, but most likely by other strangers that are going to be on social media. So I think now people immediately become defensive with the camera, versus if you look at photography from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there wasn't that wall up. Not as much, at least. There wasn't that wall, there wasn't that defense, there wasn't that feeling of complete invasiveness, because people were kind of okay with it because it was fine. Versus now, I think not only are we more defensive because we know where the image in the media is going to be placed and consumed, social media is going to, for everyone to see. But also now we're so much more aware of ourselves and making sure that we show the best version of ourselves. You know what I mean? Because of social media. I think that's also why people feel like they're being invaded, because if I can pose for this photograph and I'm ready for it, now I have some kind of control over who I'm choosing to portray myself as to you. Versus if I'm not ready for this photograph and you're taking it without my consent, without my preparation, that's not the version of me that I want you to show the world. So I'd even think it's a conversation of you being invasive and taking my photograph without me asking. No, I think it's more you taking my photograph of a version that I don't want you to show the world.
It's the whole thing where a lot of people on social media are going to show you the happy times, not the sad times.
Exactly.
I'm even thinking about big media. You know, LeBron James gets accused of this all the time, but it's like he's always trying to push a certain narrative about himself and the league or whatever the hell it is, right? Because he wants to be perceived in a certain way. I think, you know, something you said that really struck me was the dichotomy between the private and the public life. Where as a human being, you have to deal with that dichotomy because we have an internal private world. I can't read your brain. Therefore, your thoughts are not public to me unless you speak them, right? But at the same time, as social creatures, by default, we have to engage with one another in order to survive. So by default, we have that public life. It seems to be, you know, what I internalized and then thought from what you were saying is that the camera in combo with social media, it expanded the realm of our public lives. Because before social media, your public life consisted of your community. It might be just your family, it might be your coworkers, it might be your schoolmates. But now...
And it consisted of like quite literally, like just your physical interactions with people.
Exactly. But now the social boundaries have been pushed wide open. And a motherfucker in China can see a picture of me. I'm thinking, this is actually pretty funny. One of my favorite YouTubers, occasionally they do these ads for these companies. And one of the ads includes my man sitting on the toilet. Okay? Because he's like, I need to surf the web, Shark VPN, even when I'm taking a shit. But then it's like, bro, you got people in China looking at you pretending to take a dump. You know what I'm saying? And you live in Canada. Like, that there's a lot of people in the damn world. You know what I mean? And the world's a big place. So that just blew my mind there for a second.
And I agree again. It expanded what public means.
It expanded what public means.
Like very much so. It also expanded like what is traditionally public and private now, and also expanded like what is okay to even show publicly. And real quick, I really just want to read that because it's exactly what we're talking about right now. But it's like he talks about exactly that, like the public versus the privacy. but then also experiencing each photograph or even medium, each in this conversation, each TikTok, each reel, whatever you post on social media, you consume it as private because you're the only one looking at it.
It's just you and the
It's
screen.
just you and the screen and you in the media itself, which is let's say
Yeah.
a photograph in this case, right? Like it's private because it's just between me and this photograph on my phone that you posted. So technically it's me, the photograph, or in this case, the phone screen, and then the artist who published it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's only two people. But the thing is, there's a million people looking at it.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's a million cases of privacy, which now makes it public.
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean?
It's a million cases of privacy that make it public.
Because there's multiple people consuming the same thing that you chose to put out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's also why some people get so embarrassed when they get caught recording themselves.
yeah.
But yet you're gonna post that same video on TikTok for the
yeah.
world to see.
And it's because we haven't edited it yet.
And
It's because we haven't edited
you know what I
it
mean?
yet. Yeah.
And again, the same passage. Like each photograph is read as the private appearance of its referent. The age of photography corresponds precisely to the explosion of the private into the public,
Wow.
or rather into the creation of new social value, which is a publicity of the private.
Yeah. The publicity of the private.
The private is consumed as such.
Oh
publicly.
my gosh. That's, you know what that makes me think of? That makes me think of vlogs. Right?
Yeah.
Because can you read that the last sentence one more time?
The age of photography corresponds precisely to the explosion of the private into the public, or rather into the creation of a new social value, which is the publicly of the private. The private is consumed as such publicly.
So I think the thing I'm harping on is the creation of new social values. And
Yeah.
this goes on to the living vicariously too, where your life is a form of social currency. If you live a lavish enough life.
I love that idea. Yeah.
And you know what? Not even social currency, monetary, money, straight up.
Now it's monetary value.
I wear my heart on the sleeve, but who doesn't? I'm in a generation where you just say fuck it. Love don't exist unless you out of school, pockets full of money, and you got no issues with your daddy or your mommy. But I ain't gonna sit here and lie. I thought about texting X a couple of times, thinking it would help. Just to remember, it was dopamine I felt at 5:53 or 6:23 in the morning. But we did most of our loving in your bedroom. To be honest, to the public.